Speaker. My name is Matt Sinovic. I'm the Executive Director of Progress Iowa. I want to thank you all for being here tonight to welcome Mayor Blasio to the state of Iowa. I want to say a quick few thank yous before we get rolling. I want to recognize some of the elected officials who are in the room. State Representative Helen Miller. Is she still here? Helen? Okay, she's the lead. Senator Rob Hogue, I believe, is here. State Representative Marty Anderson. State Representative Chuck Eisenhart. And former State Senator Jack Hatch. I also want to thank one of our board members who's in the room, who works for the Iowa State Education Association, Melissa Peterson. And of course, thank you to all of you for your donations, for your support. Our organization could not be as successful as it has been without your financial support. So thank you for your donations. If you haven't made a donation yet, you can make your check out at the registration table. If you have, you can always, donate a little bit more. I really want to thank Iowa State Education Association for all the work that you all do, advocating for our schools, for our teachers, for our students, and thank you so much for hosting us here tonight. So to introduce the mayor,
Thank you all for coming here tonight to our house. We are welcoming you with open arms. I tell you what, I stand behind pink slips that started to go out, and that is why this is here. It's a sad time in Iowa when we have to talk about funding our schools, and however, I am thrilled that we have a mayor in our house that learned how to do this and showed the people of New York City how they could fund schools, take care of the middle class, take care of the most vulnerable citizens. And I'm just hoping some of that good karma is going to float over there. Our friends in the room are working hard, and I appreciate that. The representatives and the senators that are in here, we thank you. But we are so grateful that you are here to role model some of the things that should happen, and that the progressives here in Iowa know should be happening for our students and our families. Matt, on behalf of ISEA, and our brothers and sisters in labor, we thank you for all that Progress Iowa does for the community. There are things that we can't really say sometimes that Progress Iowa can say loud and clear for us. So it is important that we continue that relationship. You all didn't come here to hear me talk. I am just so thrilled that you are here, and we welcome you to the state of Iowa. And on behalf of 34,000 educators across the state, thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. It is so nice to be among kindred souls, people who are fighting for a more just society. Obviously, people are fighting for our children. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank everyone at ISEA for what you do. I want to thank Tammy, of course, for her leadership. Thank you, Tammy. Let's thank her for all she does. It's interesting when you do this work and you believe in something, you can find a kindred soul very quickly. I met Tammy coming off the elevator, and bang, we clicked immediately, and she told me immediately about the pink slips, and I'm ready to go with you, start lobbying over there at the building with the Golden Dome. But the fact is, this does represent so much of what the challenge is in this nation. What's happening here in Iowa, what's happening all over the country. The priorities are wrong. And I want to talk about that for a few minutes and talk about the things I think that we can do about it. But I also want to thank Matt, and I want to thank everyone at Progress. Where did Matt go? Right here. There. Matt, let's thank Matt for his leadership. And everyone at Progress Iowa. I love the name, by the way. I love the name Progress Iowa. It says it all. I love the logo. That's one of the better logos I've seen in a long time. Well done. I love the notion of an organization that will say what needs to be said, and sometimes go out there farther when things need to be shaken up a little more. I really appreciate that. I know that putting this event together, took some real effort. Special shout out and thank you to Melissa Peterson for her effort putting it together. Thank you very much. Yes, Yes, I've been thoroughly briefed. So I want to talk about the challenge before us, but first I just want to contextualize this for a moment because you know this as Iowans, but I want to share with you. I come from an inconsequential political state. I come from a state that, although we appear to be large and important in some other ways, when it comes to presidential politics, just no one cares. So you come from a state that is number one in the lineup, the place that everyone comes. I was at a meeting earlier today with Mayor County and some other mayors from the metropolitan area, and one of them said, absolutely, with a very gentle and humble demeanor, says, you know, around here we're used to presidential candidates coming over to our house, and numerous candidates coming through our house. And I said, well, that just doesn't happen for us in New York City. So, this is the center of the universe, and this is an extraordinary place. And I had the honor of speaking at Drake University at Senator Harkin's Institute, and I was saying something that was important, I think, to remind people in the audience, and obviously some of my fellow New Yorkers are here who are members of the news media. I wanted them to hear it too, that this is a state with an extraordinary progressive tradition. You can see it obviously in Tom Harkin, one of the great progressives that this nation has produced in recent decades. But it goes back in many ways decades and decades before. And here's a state that did more on progressive income tax than so many others. Here's a state that was one of the first on marriage equality. This is a state that I think a lot of times the national discourse and the pundits don't look at the totality of what Iowa is about. But I've had the honor of spending some time here. This is a state that I think, for good reason, is first in the lineup, and often pushes the debate in a more progressive direction. And I think we're going to have to do that again, very, very intensely, because I bring us back to the pink slips. How on earth are we thinking about any state, any city, thinking about something that could lead to fewer teachers and less education for our children in a world where education determines economic destiny more than any time before in human history? It's as simple as that. Our society has changed, our world has changed, education is the economic pathway, the equalizer more than ever before. This should be a no-brainer. Funding education should be and it is not surprising that the willingness to prioritize things other than education, other than public education, goes back to the core problem of our politics today. It's very easy in our public discourse to attack working people. That's what happens all the time. It's very easy to attack the organizations that represent working people. So let's think about it. A nation that should be doing everything we can to deepen our commitment to education. A nation that should be uplifting working people and embracing the labor movement that has been the gateway to the middle class. All those things should be straightforward, and we're in a political trough right now, where the world's a bit upside down. Working people under assault all the time, labor under assault, education being defunded. You know, from the time the Great Recession started, we had a period of time where we had lost 250,000 people in the public education field in this country. 250,000 people were laid off in public education in this country as a result of the Great Recession. How on earth are we going to create a just and good society, and how on earth are we going to compete in the world if we're laying off the people who actually prepare the pathway to the future for us? So this is part and parcel of a bigger crisis. It is part and parcel of the crisis of inequality that we're facing in this country. I ran on this message that we have fallen into a state of profound inequality. It is deepening inequality. It is taking us in the wrong direction. It is dangerous. It does not have to be this way. My simple message tonight, I'll be very brief, but my simple message tonight is it does not have to be this way. It's not fated. It's not written on stone tablets. We actually as a nation have changed before. We need to change again. I had the blessing, I had parents and family members who went through the Depression. And I heard those stories over and over again. I heard both the human reality of taking on the economic crisis and how every family had to overcome it, but I also heard the nobility of leaders and movements that took on the crisis head on. I always say we used to have big family gatherings, and it was like there was the family members and two other chairs at the table almost. Two other chairs that happened not to be occupied, but they might as well have been, because my family members talked about Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Theodore LaGuardia so many times I thought they might as well have been at the table. And it was because there was a reverence for what they did in a moment of crisis. It was when leadership meant responding to people's needs directly, humanly, urgently. We've seen it happen with our own eyes. That was in the lifetime of so many people that we know, or lifetime of our family members. Once in America, we were under a similar threat. In the 1920s, we had tremendous income disparity, or a tax on labor. There was a sense that this nation was never going to serve working people. Depression hit out of nowhere. And suddenly, at a moment when you could have said all was lost, along came the New Deal, along came a generation of leaders who said we were going to do things in a way that literally no one had ever seen before. If you think the struggles today are difficult, go back and look at what 1929 and 30 and 31 and 32 were like. Look at how people were staring over into the abyss, a place they had never been before, 25% unemployment. And along came leaders who said, we're going to do something that's never been seen before. We're going to change the nature of our federal government. We're going to reach people in their neighborhoods, in their communities. We're going to put them back to work. We're going to uplift them. We're going to protect the right to organize. I mentioned yesterday. Because I really think there's a misunderstanding. I had the honor of speaking at UNO in Omaha. And there's a misunderstanding about the history of this country. There's a misunderstanding of the history of Iowa and Nebraska, so many other states. And I said, look, in the New Deal, one of the great champions, one of the greatest leaders of the New Deal in the Congress was Senator Norris of Nebraska. And he teamed up with Theodore LaGuardia. And they passed legislation that was the foundation for protecting and fostering organized labor in this country. They passed legislation that stopped the attacks on labor, that made it federal policy to protect working men and women. There was no playbook. They were in the great unknown. And what did they do in the face of the great unknown? They innovated. They created, they believed, they ventured forth. They experimented. One of the beautiful things about the New Deal was they were not afraid to experiment. They didn't know if it would all work or not. They knew they had to try. Today, challenges income inequality, an ever less equal society, going in the wrong direction more all the time. Concentration of wealth in this country is the greatest we have seen in almost a century, and is getting worse. Getting worse. The power dynamics aligned almost exactly. The wealth aligns to the power. The policies emanating from Washington align to the needs of the wealthy, not the needs of everyday Americans. Guess what? It's not happening in secret. There's not some cloak of invisibility. We all can see it now. More and more people are talking about it, more and more they're feeling it, and more they're ready to do something about it. So I came out here to talk about income inequality, and I have to tell you, the folks I've talked to in Iowa, in Nebraska, they're already there. They get it. They know we have to have a whole set of different solutions. And I've said to them, well, since you're in the #1 state, since you're in the center of the political universe, use that power. Demand those solutions. It's time for leaders, and I would say this both sides of the aisle, I'd say this about independents, everyone. It's time for people to say what they will do about income inequality. If you got a candidate, if you got a candidate for president, for governor, for senator, for house, they won't tell you they have a plan to address income inequality, well, walk on by. Because this is the challenge of our times. So it's time for people to speak out. And I know people have eyes to see. They see this concentration of wealth. They know it's un-American to have so few people have so much wealth and power. They know the greatness of this country was when there was opportunity for the many, when there was prosperity that was shared. It's something we've seen before. You know, that New Deal spurred decades of a society that actually gave more and more people economic opportunity and inclusion. We saw a growing labor movement for decades that aligned perfectly to the growth in the middle class. And when labor started to decline, you could see this almost chart exactly. As labor started to decline, the middle class started to decline. As labor had less power, working people had less power. and the few, powerful and the wealthy, had more power. Well, when you can see all that, it's pretty clear what to do about it. It's time to tax the wealthy. It's time to tax the wealthy so we can do something about the ills that face this country. We want to educate our children. We want to educate our children the right way. And we fought for this in New York City. And I'll tell you how proud I am, because this started for me when I was a parent. I always say the day we brought Shirlane, my wife Shirlane, and I brought our daughter Kiara home from the hospital, and I'll just tell you this very quick vignette. We're at the hospital. We had never been parents before. Folks Hospital is very nice. They don't exactly give you a parenting handbook. They don't exactly tell you what's going to be next. The one thing, they were absolutely obsessed with whether we had a car seat for the ride home. And we did have a car seat. And then they said, okay, you're free to go. So we came home. We literally had our daughter in the car seat. And we were a little petrified to take her out of the car seat. We didn't know what happened. So we had her in the car seat. We put her down on the couch. And we stood back. And a lot of you are very into politics, so you remember the last line of the movie The Candidate with Robert Redford from 1972. We had the exact same moment. We looked at each other and we said, what do we do now? But from that very moment spurred my depth of feeling, and Shirlane's depth of feeling, for not just our children, but all children. And a realization with every passing day of what parents needed to do to support their children, what our society needed to do. And so, fast forward to 2013, I ran for mayor and I said, here's my number one priority: full day pre-K for every child in New York City. And just to let you know what this took, when I became mayor, we had 20,000 kids in full day pre-K. I said that within 2 years, we had to create absolute and total universality. Next school year starts in September. Next year in New York City, every child who needs pre-K gets it. Full-time, high-quality pre-K starting this next school year. Done. Available. And I tell you that for a quick reason. It simply says, when you actually get your priorities right, when you say, this is not just for the parents of those children or just for those children, it is for our whole society. Because we need everyone to thrive. And if you say to people, this matters, people move with you. And so that's my point this evening. It's very simple. I know I'm preaching to the converted. I know that. But you know, one thing I learned a long time ago about my brother and sister progressives, we have to have each other's back. We have to support each other. And we all watch each other all over this country because we're looking for inspiration, we're looking for support, we're looking for ideas. Your struggle here in Iowa is our struggle in New York City. We are one and the same. And we have to have each other's back, and we have to inspire each other because it's not easy. No one said it was going to be easy. When you take on a lot of entrenched power, when you take on a lot of people who are very happy with their wealth just the way it is, of course, you're going to be behind 8 ball. But it's amazing how many times we win. It's amazing how many times we turn the tables. And this is one of those moments in history, I can feel it. Yesterday, in this country of ours, 200 cities, 60,000 plus people protesting for the $15 wage, all over this country. Now tell me that that's the status quo. No, something's changing. It's changing rapidly. So all I'm here to say is, fight and fight hard and fight even harder, because Progress Iowa stands for these changes we need to make. ISCA stands for these changes we need to make. They are staring us in the face. The people feel it. The people are ready. People are ready for change. I'm going to go every chance I get and talk about the need for progressive taxation, the need for fairness. We need to stop spending our tax dollars to subsidize companies who send jobs overseas. How about this one? How about we close the carried interest loophole so hedge fund managers don't pay less taxes than the rest of us? How about we decide it should be a national policy that every American child has full day pre-K? Yeah. These are basic things that would change this country. And I believe we have a majority right now. I have felt this all through my public life, but I've never felt it more sharply than right this minute. I think we have a majority. It is not easy to turn that majority into action, into power, but I think we have a majority available to us. So keep fighting. You have the eyes of the nation, the eyes of the world on your state. This is going to be a very important year in the history of this country. You have a chance to make a difference, and a lot of us are depending on you, and a lot of us believe in you. We believe that the progressive core of Iowa is going to make all the difference, and then a lot of us have a lot more to do to pick up on what you started, take the baton and build it out further. This could be our year. This could be a year when things really start to change. Let's make sure it is. Thank you.